Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk is live and direct on a Wednesday. Happy Hump Day, one and all. Thanks so much for being with us. We're hanging out with you for the next 3 hours here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and, of course, on our video streaming channels, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube, and WIBW News on Facebook. However, wherever, whenever you're listening to the program today, thanks so much for being a part of the audience here on 580 Sports Talk. My name is Dan Lucero. Spencer Dupuis will be along in a bit. Brendan Dworzinski is off today. We're glad to be with you on this Wednesday afternoon with plenty to discuss on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Come on, you knew Kansas was going to win last night, right? Backs to the wall, at home. It didn't matter who they were playing, what the betting line was. Come on, that's a spot Kansas never fails to find a way to get a win. And it was a resounding one for the Jayhawks last night as they hand Iowa State their first loss of the 2025-26 campaign, 83-64 at the Phog. But here's the big question. Was that a one-off? Because the last couple of seasons, when Kansas has largely underachieved in Big 12 play, we have seen similarly outstanding home performances followed by less than inspiring stretches of play immediately following. So can KU build on what they did to the Cyclones last night? Or will last night be just another one-off? And one kind of funny coincidence about the last two games that sprung to mind when I think about home domination of a higher-ranked opponent, which is what Kansas pulled off last night as an unranked team, beating the number 2 team in the country and beating them soundly for 40 minutes of basketball. So plenty to say about last night's game at the Phog. Lots of college basketball to get to on the program today. We'll also look ahead to tonight's K-State game. They take on UCF at Bramlage Coliseum. And you know it's my least favorite term, but if there were ever a must-win in game 4 out of 18 of a conference schedule, this is one of those for Kansas State. If they want to start moving forward with any kind of momentum, they can't be 0-4 in the league. They have got to find a way to win tonight. And typically, these gotta-have-it spots, especially for home teams, just, again, look at what happened at the Phog last night. These tend to be spots where the home teams find a way. That's your source of optimism for K-State tonight. Your source of pessimism is if you have watched the first 3 games and you know what they do not do well. Happens to not be a great matchup for some of the things that UCF does do well. So we'll look ahead to tonight's game. You'll be able to hear it right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. If you are not a subscriber to the Peacock, that is streaming only tonight on Peacock for K-State UCF, because UCF and K-State, actually, because I think K-State has 5 games on Peacock scheduled for this year. So the official teams of the Cock playing each other tonight at Bramlage, K-State and UCF. If you do not have Peacock and you want to follow the game, or you do, but you'd rather listen to Wyatt and Stan, which I can hardly blame you for that, we've got you covered. K-State basketball coverage beginning when we're done at 6 o'clock from the K-State Sports Network from Learfield with the pregame show, and then the 7 o'clock tip. You can catch it right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. So we'll have some fun talking some college hoops today. And speaking of the Wildcats, our guest today will join us to talk more K-State, not just about the scuffling Tang gang, but also the recent results from the transfer portal and the finalizing of the football coaching staff. Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com will join us at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Looking forward to speaking with Fitz. As always, we do it every Wednesday at 4:35 here on the program. Sponsored by Tallgrass Windows and Doors. And we'll look forward to hearing Fitz's takes on the latest K-State happenings. We'll also talk some baseball today. We've had a day now to digest the news from yesterday that the Royals are bringing the fences in and lowering the fences at Kauffman Stadium for this coming season. And that means that the more analytically minded writers and baseball analysts out there have had a chance to redo some of their projections and try to make sense of what this actually will do in the sense of how it will affect run scoring, home runs, slugging percentage, batting average, those kinds of things. They've had a chance to run some new projections based on new data. We're going to talk a little bit about the range of things that are affected by the fences coming in and down at the K. It isn't just more home runs, though there are going to be more home runs. And it isn't just fewer extra base hits because it will be a slightly smaller outfield. I'm interested in how this impacts the kind of player the Royals prioritize acquiring. I'm interested in how this affects young hitters as they develop their approaches at the big league level. I'm interested in how this affects how pitchers pitch at Kauffman Stadium. A former Royal had an interesting opinion on the way pitchers pitch at Kauffman Stadium, particularly Royals pitchers, because of the home run environment being so pitcher friendly at the stadium. And the data actually backs it up. Plus, Fangraphs ran their own study and tried to find out which hitters would have gained the most home runs last year, which Royals hitters would have gained the most home runs at Kauffman Stadium. And you are absolutely not prepared for me to tell you who the two hitters are that would have gained the most home runs last year, because it's not who you think. So we'll talk some baseball on the show. You know I'm always excited to talk baseball on a January day that feels like a January day. We'll get into that in the 4 o'clock hour. We'll talk some Chiefs as well. How impactful was their rookie class this last year? And how impactful can the Chiefs expect the class of 25 to be moving forward? Aaron Schatz of ESPN.com put out a ranking today of the rookie classes in the NFL from 1 to 32, ranked from most to least productive. Where did the Chiefs rank, and how much more productive can the Chiefs expect that class to be for them moving forward? So we got some football, we got some baseball, we got a lot of college basketball, and we got our usual Wednesday shenanigans. We'll play One Gotta Go. We've got headlines, including the College Football Hall of Fame class adding another Wildcat. 7 K-State players now with the induction of the latest Kansas State Wildcat star into the College Football Hall of Fame. It might be my favorite Hall of Fame, the College Football Hall of Fame, because they induct a ton of players every year, like 20-odd players make it in every year, and they're all cool as hell. Like the ones you know, and even some of the ones you weren't alive for, you go back and look like, oh man, that's awesome. But there's no like public-facing vote. There's no process. There's no thought of, well, you know, was this player really a Hall of Famer? It's just, no, here's a list of some dudes. You might remember them. They were all awesome in college. And you go down the list, you're like, oh, yeah, man, this guy was awesome in college. I love the College Football Hall of Fame. I got to go visit it someday. I've never been. I got to go visit someday. Anyway, the class of 26 was announced today, and it does include not only a former Kansas State Wildcat, but Roselle, Kansas's finest. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in headlines. We got What Is Wrong With You, of course, as well. Plus, we want to hear from you on the text line today, 785-272-9429. 785-272-9429 is the text line. Also, if you are watching the program live on our YouTube stream today, the channel name is 580 Sports Talk. Hop in the live chat during the live broadcast of the show. Say hello. Interact with your fellow listeners. You know you've got one thing in common. You listen to the show. So interact, say hello, and you can interact with your host as the show goes on over on our YouTube live chat. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not yet. Subscribe to 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. And we got 2 more days to take your song submissions for 580 Sports Talk Idol. We're going to draw the songs on Friday's show, and we're going to sing on Tuesday. 580 Sports Talk Idol coming up January 20th in the 4 o'clock hour. You got 2 more days to submit which songs you want me, Spencer, or Brendan to sing. Don't forget to submit your duets as well, because There will be a winner and there will be two losers, and the losers have to do wet, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So that is something that we are looking for on the text line today, 785-272-9429, and in the live chat on YouTube. If you've already submitted some songs, but you've thought of some other ones that you think would be good, amusing for us to sing, go ahead and submit them. We'll put them all in a hat, put them all in a bowl, something, and we'll draw them on Friday's show. All right. You ready to talk some sports? I know I am. Kansas 84, Iowa State 63. I juxtaposed the score earlier. I said 83-64. That's my bad. Temporary dyslexia. It happens to all of us. I was listening to Brendan Dworzinski in the 5 o'clock hour yesterday's show. I was getting ready for high school basketball last night out at the Butel Center at Hayden. And Brendan was talking about the matchup for KU against Iowa State. And I agreed with Brendan's take on the game that for Kansas to win, they were going to have to muddy the game up. They were going to have to make it ugly. They were going to have to play it in the 60s. Well, one team played in the 60s. KU holding Iowa State to just 63 points. Bill Self said it was the best team effort of the season. Who am I to argue with him? KU ran out to a 20-plus point lead in the first half. Iowa State came out of the locker room hot. You knew they have a run in them. They're too good a team. They're too well coached. They're too much of a veteran group not to have had a run in them. They got to within, I think it was 10, and then KU punched back 11-0 run, and for all intents and purposes, at that point, with around 8.5 minutes to go, the game was over. I thought this was the most telling quote from Bill Self post-game, and you could tell Bill was in a good mood. It was gregarious, happy Bill Self at the podium last night. He really liked what he saw. Up and down, top to bottom, all 7 guys who played meaningful minutes. He was pleased. And I thought this was the most telling quote from the press conference last night. He said, we don't need to, and I'm quoting, we don't need to defer to playing just to him. And by him, he means Darren Peterson. But we also need to take advantage of him. And I don't think we have found that balance yet, but tonight was the closest thing to it. I'm going to make a Simpsons reference here. You remember the episode Homer Simpson runs for sanitation commissioner, and his slogan is, can't someone else do it? The idea that the sanitation, the garbage truck drivers and garbage workers should be just collecting all your trash as soon as it becomes trash. You shouldn't be throwing out your trash or taking your trash to the curb. Can't someone else do it? That was Homer's campaign slogan. He ended up winning the seat, and disaster and comedy ensued. Anyway, can't someone else do it? Feels like at times that has been the slogan for these Kansas Jayhawks this year. Can't someone else do it? Particularly Darren Peterson when he's on the floor. But when Darren Peterson has not been on the floor, other than a couple of Melvin Council moments, like the second half of the UCF game or the North Carolina State game, it has felt like a team that is deferring to somebody else to go make the thing happen. Whatever that thing needed to be for Kansas, whether that was the rebound or a stop or a bucket or a three, it just has felt like this team has not been entirely sure who's going to take the bull by the horns, so to speak. The anticipation going into the season, it was going to be Darren Peterson. Well, it hasn't really been Darren Peterson because he's been in and out of the lineup. And then even when he's played, he's been sporadically in and out of games. You never know when he's going to be in, when he's going to have to come out, how long he's going to play into the second half. So I think that's been one of the main issues for this Kansas team this year. It's not their only issue, but I think it has been one of the primary issues. It can't just be Darren Peterson, or it can't just be Melvin Council. Other guys have to be able to go and make the big play, go and make the big shot, score at volume, go get a rebound, go dive for a loose ball. Bill Self mentioned one play in particular in the first half when Elmarco Jackson dove for a loose ball that he had lost. It had been poked away from him. He dove for it at midcourt. He beat Tilley for Iowa State to the basketball. He was able to get it away to Jamari McDowell, who had a cross-court pass to Trey White. He knocked down a three. That was early in the game, gave KU an 8-point lead, but that felt like a thesis statement for Kansas in that game. The idea that they weren't going to get out-hustled, they weren't going to get outworked, and it was going to take everybody. And I really think that was the effort that you saw last night. Again, 7 guys played meaningful minutes. Nobody was a net negative. Jamari McDowell was a plus 30 in 23 minutes, 23 and a half minutes. Plus 30. Melvin Council Jr. plus 24. Darren Peterson played 27 and a half minutes, came out with 5.5 minutes to go. Didn't really need to come back in. Doesn't sound like he really would have been 100% if he had, but he played 28 minutes. Even his bad games are good games. He scored 16 points on 6 of 15 shooting. Like, he wasn't spectacular. He didn't have the 3-ball going, but even his bad games are still kind of good games. That's why he's such a special talent. It's very rare you say that about a guy like him. But Trey White knocks down 5 threes. Flory gives you 10 and 7. Bryson Tiller chipped in 8 points. You'll take that from a front court that has struggled to find its footing early on in Big 12 play. I mentioned McDowell, not just the plus minus in the box score. Everything was really good. He's knocking down threes. He's hitting pull-up middies. Like, that was not a player I recognized last night. He was terrific. He also had 6 assists, a team-high total. That was a team effort with a capital T, and those are the kinds of efforts that have been missing for Kansas. There have been too many weak links in the chain because those links have been counting on either somebody who hasn't been there or somebody who hasn't been able to carry the heaviest of the load. Last night, that was a team that understood, one, how to play, how to function with Darren Peterson on the floor, but also function in such a way that they were their best selves around Peterson and without him. And we really, other than the Players Era tournament, we haven't seen that from Kansas this season. Certainly didn't see it in the first 3 Big 12 games. We saw it last night, and the path forward is clear. And that version of the Jayhawks, the ball movement, the movement away from the ball that resulted in easy looks, the 3-point shooting, and let's be clear, K-State shot 50% from 3 last night. They're going to do that every night. Like, the reason that was a blowout last night is because KU shot the crap out of it from 3. I think KU probably still wins if they shoot a more reasonable percentage. If they make 7 out of 24, I think KU probably still wins the basketball game, finds a way. But it was a blowout because they shot like the 2016 Warriors. That's the blueprint. KU plays like that, they are going to be just fine. They're going to win more than their fair share of Big 12 games. But that's my big question. Is this the start of something, or is this a false dawn? Because we have seen some false dawns in recent years for the Jayhawks. And usually those have come a little bit later in the Big 12 schedule. But those big games at home against higher ranked competition where Kansas hasn't just won, they've dominated. Last year, Big Monday, Iowa State in town, KU kicked them to the curb, 69-52. Super impressive performance. The get back from having lost at Hilton really early in the Big 12 schedule, it was an outstanding win for Kansas. Felt like they'd found a bit of a defensive identity. They'd found a way forward in the schedule, and they had some really winnable feeling games in the near-term future ahead of them. Well, they lost 3 of their next 4. They lost at K-State. They beat Colorado, but not super convincingly. And then they had that ill-fated Utah trip where we come to find out that maybe that team didn't like being around each other very much. But false dawn. Right? 17-point home win over a really good Iowa State team, followed by losing 3 out of 4. 2 years ago, you remember when they beat Houston 78-65 at Allen Fieldhouse? And honestly, I was at that game. It wasn't that close. Kansas controlled that entire basketball game, and they beat Houston, handled Houston. Houston, I think, was number 2 in the country. They would later be number 1 in the country. They would be number 1 in the country at the end of that season when they beat KU by 30 at the Fertitta Center. But I'm getting ahead of myself. They beat Houston right at the midway point of the conference schedule, just about. Their next game, coincidentally, also at Kansas State. They lost that game in overtime. And they would proceed to go 4-5 down the stretch of that regular season. Obviously, there were the injury concerns that team had vis-a-vis Kevin McCullough. You had the terrible loss to Cincinnati in the Big 12 tournament, and that team should have lost to Samford in the NCAA tournament and then eventually did crash out in round 2. False dawn. We've seen this before. We have seen Kansas rise to the occasion when the occasion called for them to rise to it at home against a team that on paper is better. And they have not followed it up in encouraging fashion. One good bit of news, I guess, is that at K-State is not next on the schedule. I guess that's a positive. You've got the reeling Baylor Bears who come to town. It's a Friday night game, by the way. Friday night on Fox. So no Saturday for KU this week. They play Friday night. It's the national Fox game. Can they build on what they did last night? Otherwise, this is just a movie we've seen before. It's a false dawn. It's a nice win. It's a fun night out at Allen Fieldhouse. But now they have to build on it. And building on it doesn't mean that they're all of a sudden now a 50% three-point shooting team. Building on it means playing together and everybody holding the rope. Not a single guy dropping the rope. If that's what KU can be, then there are a lot more wins ahead of them on this Big 12 schedule. And they really have potentially turned a corner. But I'm not ready to declare the corner to have been turned because I've been wrong before. We'll take a quick timeout. We'll come back a little bit more about Darren Peterson last night. And we actually got to hear from him after the game, which we had not heard from him post-game in a very long time. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Going to have some thoughts on the Chiefs draft class of 2025 later this hour. Lots of thoughts on the new fences at Kauffman Stadium, how that affects who the Royals want as offensive players, who they might want as defensive players, and it might affect how pitchers pitch in a way that you might not expect. We'll get into that too. We got Tim Fitzgerald coming up, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. We got headlines. We got One Gotta Go. We got a lot more show, and we're glad you're here on 580 Sports Talk. .331 on 580 Sports Talk. We're just getting started on this Wednesday edition. Again, you can weigh in on what we're talking about on the live chat on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, or on our text line, 785-272-9429. Like I was saying in the opening segment, Darren Peterson's bad games are still pretty good, still pretty impactful. 27 and a half minutes played last night. Finished with 16 points on 15 shots. Little less efficient than we've seen him be. Big part of that was him being 2 for 7 from behind the arc. Made both his free throws. Had 5 rebounds. Had a couple of steals. Finishes a plus 11 on the night. Came out briefly in the second half. When he did, KU made their run. And he came back in and he helped them to steady the ship, push the lead back over 20. Came out with about 5.5 minutes to play. And you could read between the lines pretty clearly that had it been a closer game, maybe he would have been able to come back in for like a minute or two. But again, he was being shut down. We're getting closer to normal with Darren Peterson. And the best evidence of that was he actually got to speak to the media yesterday, which he had not done since after the North Carolina game. But we're getting closer to Darren Peterson plays more of the game than he doesn't, and he's available every night. We don't have to go into every game. Man, is DP going to play? Well, yeah, he's going to play. Well, now it's how much is he going to play? And at some point, Bill Self pointed this out in the postgame, he's going to have to be out there for the crunch time minutes. He's going to have to be out there at the under 4 timeout and finish a game. We have to see it. We have to see it. That team needs it. NBA general managers need to see it if they're going to entrust the keys to their franchise to a guy who is a franchise talent. But we're getting closer, I think, to that normal for Darren Peterson, where he's not just another player, but his usage and his managing his minutes, that's not the kind of thing that needs to happen anymore. And as his availability gets closer to normal, even if it's just the minutes played, that allows KU to use lineups that are going to play together with and without him on the court. And that gives them a higher level of comfort, both playing with DP and playing without him. And Bill Self said after the game, they're not all the way where they need to be, just in general as a team, but they're also not all the way to the point of balance where they're not entirely deferential to Darren Peterson, but also they take advantage of the fact that they have a guy who's that good on their team and on the floor, able to make plays for them. It does feel like he's getting closer, and that's nothing but a positive, not just for Kansas, but for like anybody who likes to watch basketball. Like, this kid is so talented, man. He's just unbelievably gifted. And that's the thing. That's the thing that sucks about injuries. When good players get hurt, doesn't matter the sport, doesn't matter the level of the sport. You don't get to watch a great player perform at their highest ability level. You feel a little cheated. I think that's how I would describe covering Kansas basketball this year. I think there is a little bit of a feeling that we've been cheated a little bit. And not that that's anybody's fault, but not getting to see for but glimpses and flashes the full Darren Peterson experience yet. It's getting closer. He's impacting winning now for Kansas. The 2 Big 12 games that they won, he impacted winning. But he's got to, finish a basketball game. That's something that he's got to do at some point. One other note from last night's game. Bill Self trimmed the rotation to 7. Omarco Jackson played 21 minutes off the bench. Played well. 8 points, 4 steals. You'll take that from Marco. 5 of 6 at the free throw line. Jamari McDowell, that's about as good a game as I've ever seen Jamari play. 8 points, 6 assists, 2 for 3 from behind the arc. hitting tough shots. Like Jamari McDowell three-pointers are found money. But that was it for the bench minutes. Jaden Dawson has been memory hold. Cole Rosario is on milk cartons in Greater Lawrence. In fact, neither of those guys even got in when they ran the walk-ons out. They ran the walk-ons out. Rosario caught a DNP. Dawson caught a DNP. Paul Mbia caught a DNP. And this is another year in a stretch of them now for Kansas where you go into the season looking at the roster and feeling like, hey, there's some real quality depth here. KU's going to be able to go maybe 8, 9, 10 deep. And then early in Big 12 play, early in league play, it's like, nah, never mind. Never mind all that. We got 7. And we say the same thing every year. You could probably quote it. You could probably say it along with me. You know, in the NCAA tournament, you really only need 7. You play 2 games in 3 days for 3 weeks. You really don't need to be 10 deep in the NCAA tournament. If you've got 7, that's fine. We say it every year. It's not less true now than it was before. But you kind of do need more than 7 going through the meat grinder of the Big 12 schedule. And even in a game where Kansas was in control for the better part of it, the only portion of the game where they lost control a little bit was to start the second half. Still only 2 guys come in off the bench. No token Mbia minutes, no token Rosario minutes, no Dawson minutes. And I still think the best version of Kansas gets something from those guys. But if that's not possible, you need to start really asking some questions about, some of the same questions we've been asking for 3 years. Because remember 2 years ago when Nick Timberlake was supposed to produce bench scoring, and then every time he came into a game for the entirety of the Big 12 schedule, everybody kind of rolled their eyes and grimaced? Or last year when A.J. Storr was supposed to be an additive piece and was never really that? KU's starting 5s, even the flawed ones of the last 2 years before this one, have been good, but they are misfiring. They appear to have misfired for another year when it comes to building out a rotation. Now, if they get this version of El Marco and this version of Jamari moving forward, that's probably sufficient to give Peterson and Council and White a breather, or to play with 4 guards or shift White to the 4 and have Badunga or Tiller on the floor at any point as the only 5-man, or the only big man, I guess I should say. But how sustainable is that through the Big 12 schedule? I guess we'll find out. I guess we'll find out again, because this is the 3rd year in a row we've been doing this, where you go into the year, man, KU's going to have some real depth this year. Nope. Fell for it again. But again, how much of a problem is it if El Marco and Jamari can be that? How much do you trust that they can? That was probably the best Big 12 game for either of those guys. One of the best games of Jamari's career. If they can be that every night, great. Would you count on it? Would you bet on it? We're going to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, Aaron Schatz of ESPN.com ranked the impact of the rookie classes across the National Football League from this past season. Where did the Chiefs rank, and how much more should they expect to get from the class of 2025 moving forward? We'll talk a little NFL football. We got some Royals to get to in the 4 o'clock hour as well. Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, joins us in about an hour for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. Lots more to get to on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Stay with us. Back on 580 Sports Talk. Tyler in the YouTube comments makes a good point. YouTube live chat open on our YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk. We're live every day, 3 to 6 Central on the YouTube channel. Points out that Elmarko Jackson's improvement due to the timeline on his knee injury. He says the timeline for being fully 100% right around now was always going to be kind of a 2-year minimum injury, that patella tendon injury that he suffered that cost him last year. I'll say this. I have more belief that Elmarko Jackson can give KU what he gave them last night on a consistent basis more than I have the belief that Jamari McDowell is going to be an 8-point-a-game, 6-assist-a-game guy off the bench. Like, when you look for stuff about last night's game that was sustainable, the three-point shooting, I don't think was. Jamari McDowell playing that well, shooting that well, I don't think is. But Elmarko being a steady reserve guard, I think that is more realistic. He's going to have nights where he doesn't do much on offense, and then that's just part of being a young player without a ton of game experience in the Big 12. It's part of being a sophomore. But I do think that he is a guy that no matter what changing shape the rotation takes for Kansas between now and the end of the Big 12 season, the start of postseason play, he's going to be a fixture. And so they not only need him to be able to chip in a few points tonight, they need those hustle plays like the one he made early in that game to rescue that loose ball. They need more of that from him. And that's the kind of stuff that maybe he gets more comfortable doing as he gets closer and closer. Tyler, as you mentioned, that 100% mark. Want to shift gears to some football talk. Aaron Schatz of ESPN.com today published an article ranking the rookie classes by production, from most to least production. And now, as you'd expect, most of the teams that got the most production from their rookies either had a lot of draft picks and or drafted pretty high in the draft. Like, for example, the Saints. They were number 1 on his list. They had the number 9 overall pick. They also drafted a quarterback who started most of the games for them this season and played okay. And Tyler Shuck was better than I thought he was going to be. I'll give him that. Now, he wasn't spectacular, but he's at least a guy you can go give a full year to. But the Saints are number 1. The Browns were number 2. They obviously had the number 5 overall pick, and they had 2 second-round picks, and most of the guys they drafted were all really good. The Giants had the number 3 overall pick and 2 first-round picks, including a starting quarterback, so they obviously ranked really high. The Patriots were 4th. They had the number 4 overall pick. The Panthers had the number 8 overall pick. You see what I'm driving at here. And generally, the flip side is that teams who draft low in the draft, or teams that had a veteran core and didn't really lean on young players, they were the ones who ranked the lowest on the list. Like the Rams, who did not have a first-round pick, were 32nd. Jacksonville, even though they had number 2 overall pick, Travis Hunter, he got hurt. They didn't have any other first or second-round picks and didn't get much from them. The Vikings only had 5 total picks. They ranked 30th. So you get the idea. The Chiefs ranked 21st out of 32 teams when it came to production from their rookie class. This is what Schatz wrote, quote, first-round draft pick Josh Simmons managed to start only 8 games as the Chiefs' top rookie. He was above average in pass block win rate, but below average in run block win rate. On defense, third-round cornerback Noel Williams had 5 starts and 48 combined tackles with 5 passes defensed. Also notes the contributions of Ashton Gelati, Omar Norman-Lott only getting to play 5 games, Brashard Smith, and undrafted rookies Esapole and Kevin Knowles. Just looking at the players who were drafted, the Chiefs had 7 picks last year. They had 4 in the top 100, 2 third-rounders, second-rounder, and then the 32nd overall pick, which they turned into Josh Simmons. Their day 3 picks, Jalen Royals, Jeffrey Bassa, Brashard Smith. Generally speaking, if it doesn't happen in year 1, it probably isn't going to happen as far as a player being a regular contributor to either the offense or the base defense. If that sounds like I'm writing off Jalen Royals and Jeffrey Bassa, I kind of am. That's kind of what's happening. Royals at least has a bit of an injury excuse, but he was healthy for the second half of the season. And even when he did get on the field, the Chiefs didn't really throw the ball to him. He didn't really work his way open. Jesse Newell made an interesting point today over at The Athletic, writing about 3 butterfly effect moments for the Chiefs season. And he pointed out that one of them was the 4th round of last year's draft, where the Chiefs were wanting to draft a running back, but then a whole bunch of them ended up going off the board in the 4th round. Do you remember that? You remember the NFL draft this past year? The 4th round of the draft saw a flurry of running backs right before where the Chiefs were going to pick in the 4th round. They ended up picking 133rd overall. And there was that run in the 4th round that started with Basil Tootin to Jacksonville at number 104, and then Scadaboo to the Giants at 105, Trevor Etienne to Carolina at 114, Woody Marks and Jarquez Hunter back-to-back at 116 and 117. Dylan Sampson went to Cleveland at 126. And that was the point at which the Chiefs were looking at their draft board saying, well, all the running backs we would have wanted to take here, they're not on the board. So they ended up going wide receiver. They ended up going Jalen Royals. And that didn't work out because he didn't give him anything this year. And typically, you don't do anything as a rookie unless you miss the entire season due to injury. It doesn't really bode well for you giving the team a whole lot. So I'm bearish on Jalen Royals as a long-term contributor for the Chiefs. Jeffrey Boss is probably just a special teams guy, which for a 5th-round pick, that's okay. There are worse outcomes than that. But the other 5, I think, can stick. Josh Simmons, I think, will be an above-average left tackle in the league, provided he is healthy. Ashton Gelati, I think, is at minimum a rotational defensive end. You need 4, right? There's 2 that start, but you need 4 playable defensive ends. And I think for the duration of his rookie contract, Gelati's going to be one of those. I think Noel Williams has a chance to start on the outside next year for the Chiefs. It will depend on some decisions they make elsewhere. What they do with Fulton, not Fulton. Well, yeah, what they do with Christian Fulton, what they do with Jalen Watson in free agency. They let him walk. If they trade Trent McDuffie, there's obviously a lot of lots up in the air with the secondary. But I think Noel Williams has a decent chance to wind up a starter at some point on his rookie contract. Good outcome for a 3rd-round pick. Brashard Smith, I think, is going to have a role. I'm not sure that role looks like running back 1. I'm not sure that role looks like what we've known the traditional 3rd down back role to be with the Reed Mahomes era Chiefs. I don't think he's Jerick McKinnon or Samaje Perine, but there's a role for a player who can catch passes out of the backfield and who might be their best punt returner. That was another thing Jesse Newell wrote up as a butterfly effect moment. Brashard Smith getting hurt in camp meant he couldn't really work in the return group the way they wanted to work him in, which meant Nico Remigio made the team as the returner and just had no juice all year. Didn't really give the Chiefs anything. And then at the end of the year, Brashard Smith looked like pretty plainly the Chiefs' best return man. He had that 44-yard punt return against the Broncos. So I think Smith sticks on the rookie deal as a return specialist and as somebody who, not quite a gadget player, but somebody who catches passes out of the backfield and can maybe occasionally pop a big run as a change of pace 3rd back. Norman Lott is a question mark. Tore the ACL 5 games in. What is he going to be? That, to me, is an interesting question. But for a 7-pick draft where you pick at the back end of round 1, back end of round 2, I think the Chiefs will feel pretty good over the 3 years to come about how this draft class ends up if they end up with 2 starters in Simmons and Williams, 2 rotational defensive linemen in Norman Lott and Gelati, because those guys cost money on the market. Guys who I think can be as good as they are, they will cost you money. Do I think that Gelati can be as productive as Mike Dana? Sure I do. And then a gadget guy like Brashard Smith. If that's what the Chiefs end up with the class of 2025, I think they'll be happy with that. Especially if Simmons ends up being as good as it looks like he can be when he's healthy. So they might have been only the 21st most productive draft class, rookie class of 2025. But I think it's got staying power, and I think that there's I still, they grade the draft immediately after the draft, right? You get draft grades the day after the draft. Like, those mean anything. But if you were grading the Chiefs draft right now after 1 year, I give it a B. I go B for that draft class, considering everything, with a little bit of upside if Simmons, again, continues on the trajectory he's on. And if Norman Lott is able to return and be a quality interior pass rusher for the Chiefs moving forward. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up this 3 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. Set the table for the rest of the show next. Wrapping up this first hour of 580 Sports Talk. 2 more hours to go. 6 o'clock tonight, we hand the ball to the K-State Sports Network from Learfield for pregame coverage of K-State hoops. Men in action tonight at home against UCF. 7 o'clock tip-off. If you don't have Peacock, you're not going to be able to watch on TV. So we've got the radio broadcast tonight here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. We'll get into some K-State athletics with Tim Fitzgerald at the bottom of this upcoming 4 o'clock hour. Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. He'll join us for the Wildcat Wrap-Up presented by Tallgrass Windows and Doors. We'll get his take on tonight's K-State UCF game, as well as his take on K-State's business in the portal. How big a deal is the Wendell Gregory addition? Not just in terms of what he can bring on the field, but what it shows about K-State's ability to win a transfer portal recruiting battle against some of the big dogs in college football. Plus, his thoughts on the continued filling out of Colin Klein's first coaching staff in Manhattan. Tim Fitzgerald joins us from GoPowerCat.com at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We're going to start the 4 o'clock hour with a look at the wide-ranging impact, and I do think it is wide-ranging, of the Royals moving the fences in and down at Kauffman Stadium. Everybody talking about them bringing the fences in. Nobody also mentioning the part where they're going to go from 10 feet to 8.5 feet, because who doesn't love a home run robbery? The hitters who would have benefited the most from it last year for the Royals as far as home runs added, there are 2 of them, and you are never going to guess who they are. You're never going to guess. But more than just, ooh, cool, dingers, how does this affect what kind of offensive traits the Royals value organizationally? How might it affect the way Royals pitchers pitch at home? Some interesting data regarding Royals pitching aggressiveness. Which pitchers might benefit, which pitchers might not benefit from the fences coming in and down at the K. Because everybody wants to talk about the dingers, and that's fun because everybody loves dingers. But there's a whole lot more that goes into this that I think is really, really fascinating about the Royals organizationally. And I'm always thinking pitching. So we'll look at it from that side as well. Plus, what is wrong with you? That's coming up at the 4 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk on this Wednesday afternoon. My name is Dan Lucero. Spencer Dupuis is across the glass. We're with you until 6 tonight here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and in living color on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and our Facebook page, WIBW News. Glad you're with us on this hump day. Lots more good stuff to come on the program. K-State basketball coming up tonight after we're done here on 580 Sports Talk. We're going to have the pregame show at 6 o'clock and the tip-off from Bramlage Coliseum just after 7 o'clock from the K-State Sports Network from Learfield as the Wildcats seek their first conference win of the season, trying to avoid an 0-4 start to league play with the Knights of UCF in town. Wyatt Thompson, Stan Weber on the call on the K-State Sports Network from Learfield. We got it right here tonight on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. In the meantime, I'm going to talk a little baseball top of this hour. The Fences are coming in at the K. How does that change the Royals? Not who's going to hit more home runs. Although the answer to that question, who would have hit more home runs with the dimensions from this coming season last year, the answer is hilarious. I'll tell you here in a second. But how does this change the Royals? How might it change how they play? How might it change how they build a roster? How might it change how pitchers pitch? Because this is not a one-off. This is going to be what the K looks like for the final 5 years of its lifespan. And how the park plays will surely impact what the dimensions look like of the new place whenever they get it built for 2031, when the lease is up at Kauffman Stadium and the Royals are going to be playing somewhere else, be playing at GEHA Ballpark at George Brett Field or whatever it ends up being called. But the dimensions of the fences there are going to be informed by the data collected here in the next handful of years that the Royals play with the K in the new configuration. So I think it's really interesting. And there's a lot of interesting math, a lot of interesting writing today. Eno Saris at The Athletic. I'm going to cite that article. Also, who was it that wrote over at Fangraphs today? I should know that because I'm going to cite that article as well. Should be able to give you a name. Ben Clemens. Ben Clemens at Fangraphs wrote about it today. So some good writing about it out there if you really want to dive into the weeds. But we're just going to talk about how it maybe changes the Kansas City Royals. We're also going to talk K-State this hour with Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com. Get the Wildcat Wrap-Up, sponsored by Tallgrass Windows and Doors. Get Fitz's take on K-State hoops, the transfer portal, Colin Klein rounding out his coaching staff, and a whole lot more. Tim Fitzgerald joins us every Wednesday on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. We'll get to him in about a half hour from now. Still got headlines, still got one gotta go, and of course, we still have your interaction with the program. Text line 785-272-9429, and the live chat on our YouTube stream. Again, the name of the channel is 580 Sports Talk. Go subscribe if you have not yet subscribed. If you are not one of the, as of earlier this afternoon, 906 good people.
7 now.
And we're up to 907. Hey, now, we're 93 away from humiliation to be named later. When we get to 1,000 subscribers, we're really going to do it big. We just don't know what that looks like yet.
I think, too, at 1,000, something giving back to our loyal listeners and viewers.
You know what we give them? We give them 15 hours of content every week for free. That's not that's not nothing, right? That's not nothing. But no, I maybe we'll do something that involves the listeners with 1,000. We'll throw a big party or something. Now, I don't know. We can throw a kegger. Again, we got to work, and Brendan's a teetotaler. But we can have some fun.
I've never heard that term before.
You've never heard the term teetotaler?
No.
It's pretty antiquated, which I guess I'm pretty antiquated. But yeah, that's an old term. Yeah. Anyway, stems from the 19th century. Andrew suggests 1,000 tacos for 1,000 subscribers in the YouTube chat. I like no idea is a bad idea, but is like, do we buy every subscriber a taco? Do I have to eat 1,000 tacos? I will. I'll do it. I'll eat 1,000 tacos.
Do we give one lucky subscriber?
Do we give one subscriber 1,000 tacos? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. Where do the tacos come from? What's in the tacos?
Do we give
now I'm hungry.
Do we give one lucky subscriber the ability to sit in on a show and watch it live in studio?
That has been suggested before, believe it or not. I feel like we could auction that off for charity at some point. I'm keeping that in my hip pocket. We do 580 Sports Talk Cares or something like that. We do a little charity auction. We should do something like that. It would be a direct ripoff of something that I know a friend of mine in radio has done at his station, but everything in radio has been stolen.
Yeah, I was about to say nothing in radio is completely original.
I always tell people, if you steal it from me, it's been stolen twice. So that's how those things tend to go. But anyway, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Join us in the live chat. Remember to get your submissions in for our 900 subscriber humiliation. 580 Sports Talk Idol coming up Tuesday, January 20th in the 4:00 hour. If you've got some new ideas for songs you'd like to hear us sing either separately or as a duet, get those in on the text line. Again, 785-272-9429 or in the live chat on YouTube. Before we get to this discussion of the Royals and the fences at Kauffman Stadium, Ryan asked a question in the YouTube comments at the top of the show, and I wanted to come back to it because there is an answer to this question. Ryan in the YouTube comments asked, why isn't there a concrete size or dimensions, I think we're talking about here, that your baseball stadium is supposed to be? After all, football fields are 120 yards long, 53 1/3 yards wide, I think it is. Basketball courts are 94 feet. Hockey rinks are the same size. Baseball fields are not. Why is that the case? And Ryan, it goes back to when baseball started. You had to build your ballpark wherever there was room, right?
Yeah.
You had to put your ballpark on a city block or a few city blocks. So you just stuck them in where they fit. And there are regulations, and Christopher actually answered this in the YouTube live chat, and he is correct about this. There are regulations. If you build a ballpark today, you cannot have the corners to the right field foul line, the left field foul pole. You cannot have those closer than 325 feet, and you cannot have center field any closer than 400 feet. But older ballparks are grandfathered in, because when they built Fenway Park in Boston, they just had to wedge it in there because that's where they built the park. So that's why the pesky pole is 302 feet out there to right field, and why the Green Monster is 310 feet away. Or why Yankee Stadium was, for all those years, Yankee Stadium was like 298 feet to right field before they built the new one, which is now the old one that doesn't exist anymore, because now there's the new one.
Yeah.
But no, there are regulations, there are rules, but the reason that they're not uniform is because that's the way baseball started, is you just sort of put the ballpark where you could fit it. And that meant some places center field was like 440 feet away, like the Polo Grounds, 480 feet away. And the corners were 250 feet. If you've ever played it on a video game where the Polo Grounds was a playable ballpark, you've definitely done home run derby at the Polo Grounds, because you're just going to pull home runs 250 feet and you have fun with that. But anyway, that is the reason, Ryan, is because of baseball stadiums used to be just things you put in the neighborhood. And that's why they were not uniform. There are restrictions now, but those did not exist back when they were building like the Baker Bowl or Municipal Stadium in Kansas City or the like. So that's the answer to your question there. Anyway, we talked yesterday about the Royals moving the fences in. They're going to move them in. The corners will still be 330. They're going to move them in basically from, if you can picture the ballpark in your head, they're going to move them in from the start of the bullpens to the end of the manual, the scoreboards, the out-of-town scoreboards, is where they're moving the fences in. So it's the power alleys all the way towards the corners. Center field's going to remain 410 feet. They're also taking the fences down from 10 feet to 8.5 feet all the way around. Ben Clemens at Fangraphs ran the batted ball data and found 2 hitters who would have added 5 more home runs to their 2025 totals for the Royals. Have you seen this? Did you look at the rundown? Do you know this?
No.
You don't know this. Okay, guess. Guess who the 2 hitters are that would have added 5 home runs last year to their total, based on if the balls they had been at the new fences at Kauffman Stadium. 2 hitters would have added 5 home runs apiece. Guess who they are?
Did one finish the season with the team?
Both players finished the season with the team.
Kyle Isbell?
No, not Kyle Isbell. That would be hilarious, but that is not an answer.
Jonathan India.
Jonathan India is correct. Jonathan India would have added 5 home runs.
Wow.
Michael Garcia is the other. Michael Garcia would have been a 20-homer guy.
I think I knew the Michael Garcia one. I saw the spray chart yesterday.
Uh-huh.
And somebody said this would have added blank home runs last year.
So the batted balls at the new fences, Michael Garcia and Jonathan India would have seen their home run totals increase by 5. Salvador Perez would have seen his home run total increase by 4. In fact, if he'd played the last decade of games with these dimensions at Kauffman Stadium, he'd have 25 more home runs. That would put him at 328 for his career. And I think he's going to get over 350 anyway. But if he were closer to 350 and had a shot at like 400 in his career, we wouldn't be arguing whether or not he'd be going to the Hall of Fame. He'd just be going to the Hall of Fame. So there's that. So Salvi would have hit 4 more home runs last year. Vinny Pasquantino and Bobby Witt Jr. would have each hit 3 more home runs. That would have taken Bobby to 26, would have taken Vinny to 35. Anyway.
Is this going to put an asterisk on Salvi when he gets the record, the Royals record?
No, I don't think so. They moved the fences in there a little bit in the 90s. It just, some Royals played at Municipal Stadium. It just, you can't, I don't think it puts an asterisk on it. No, I don't. The data says that the Kauffman Stadium has been the 4th most difficult park to hit a home run in all of Major League Baseball. Only Progressive Field in Cleveland, PNC Park in Pittsburgh, and Oracle Park in San Francisco do more to suppress dingers than Kauffman Stadium. And again, the idea of moving the fences in and down is not to make Kauffman Stadium into like Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia or Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, where the ball's flying out of the park like crazy. It is to try and bring it closer to a league average environment for home runs. That helps the middle of your order, should help your young guys, because your 2 best young hitters, Jack Caglione and Carter Jensen, are power hitters. A smaller outfield will limit singles, doubles, and triples. That could suppress batting averages. That could have an effect on players whose value is highly predicated on their batting average. Player like Kyle Isbell. Because Kyle Isbell doesn't walk and he doesn't hit for power. Kyle Isbell's value is how many singles, doubles, and triples can I get?
Yeah.
That's good. That's going to be Kyle Isbell's offensive value.
Well, you know what his defensive value is going to be now? Robbing home runs.
That's the question. Is an increase in defensive value going to follow because there's less ground to cover in center field? And will that make up for the possibility that a player like Isbell loses offensive value in a park that is less conducive to his kind of offense? And if it doesn't, if an improvement in defense either doesn't come or it doesn't balance out the loss in defensive value, then is Kyle Isbell really your long-term center field?
Yeah.
So he's a player that I'm really fascinated to see how they are impacted, how their value is impacted in center field. Another thing, I kind of touched on this a little bit yesterday, but I read more on this in Joe Posnanski's email newsletter. You know Joe Posnanski, former Sports Illustrated writer. He's written a bunch of books.
I do not.
Longtime columnist for the Kansas City Star. Before he went to Sports Illustrated and some other national gigs, and now he writes books, and he's got a blog and a newsletter. And I read the free newsletter. I'm not a subscriber, but Joe Posnanski's still really, really well regarded and well liked, and still has ties, obviously, to Kansas City. And he wrote this in his email newsletter today. Something that I've heard J.J. Piccolo talk about before. He has believed for a long time that the big outfield at Kauffman Stadium has altered the way young players swing the bat. J.J. was instrumental in bringing the young brigade of the early 2010s, and while that group certainly lived up to the hype, the team won back-to-back pennants in the World Series, his thought was that many of the young players that had a lot of natural power didn't develop it. Perhaps because they saw one too many long fly balls die at the warning track. I'll be interested to see if he's right. So it's interesting. They used a lot of data to come to these conclusions, but there's also like a preconceived notion at play here from J.J. Piccolo that Kauffman Stadium being a hard place to hit a home run has been bad for the development of young Royals hitters. I threw out MJ Melendez's name yesterday. That is a hitter who had a 40 home run season in the minors. Nick Prado's another one, had a 40 home run season or 30 plus home run season in the minors. And the power didn't develop, and they were never capable big league hitters. They never got to the point where they were capable big league hitters as a result. So if J.J. Piccolo has looked at that, and maybe he looks at like a guy like Eric Hosmer or a guy like Mike Moustakas and feels like those guys didn't hit as many home runs as they should have. Because either they changed their swings to try and generate more power, and it cost them. They started hitting more ground balls, Hosmer, or they never developed properly as hitters, stopped making contact, lost confidence, which you could put MJ Melendez maybe in that bucket. So not only is the hope that this benefits the young power hitters on the way up, I also wonder if over the long term, the Royals shift their attention to developing hitters who hit for more power and have higher on-base percentages than prioritizing players who are fast and make a lot of contact. There's been that Royals prototype of a hitter for years and years. And we joked about it on this show that, that's a Royals kind of player because they're not going to hit a bunch of home runs, but they're going to hit for a high average, and they're going to hit some doubles. They're going to hit the ball in the gap. Like, they're going to steal bases. Like, that's been the Royals prototype for years. Well, if you're playing in a ballpark where it's a little easier to go deep, it's a little harder to collect base hits because the outfield is just a little smaller, do the Royals then shift their philosophy and look to acquire more hitters that look like Jack Caglione or Carter Jensen and less of the Nicky Lopez type, less of the Tyler Gentry, Tyler Tolbert, those kinds of players into their system?
That's a good question. And honestly, though, if you have, after the show's over for anybody, if you have time, go to the Royals YouTube page and listen to the R&D I believe it's Vice General Manager, VP, it's Dr. Daniel Mack, the guy that did the research and is the R&D guy on this. Hearing him talk about it instead of just, like the GM, the guy that, gonna be the voice. This guy who actually, went and did the thing and was overseeing all the research himself. It was really cool to hear him talk about how they went out and did this and this research and how, well, maybe if it was this amount, this many, they brought it out to a neutral point to where it neither is too aggressive, but neither too conservative.
Yeah, it's interesting to really listen to, and I forget the name of the
Daniel Mack.
Yeah,
Dr. Daniel Mack.
Yeah, doctor. They put the doctor on his name card at the press conference too. So it's interesting to hear them talk about the impact on offense. But you know me, when I played, and don't let that puff up my amateur baseball career for what it isn't. But I was a pitcher, so I think like a pitcher, and I think how does this affect pitchers? And I thought this was interesting from Eno Saris of The Athletic today. How moving in the fences and bringing the fences down could impact pitchers. And the obvious is more home runs, which doesn't bode well for fly ball pitchers. I'm a little worried about Seth Lugo's decline phase in this ballpark now. I'm a little worried about Carlos Estevez. He's a fly ball guy. He doesn't miss a lot of bats. But former Royal and noted pain in the rear end, Tommy Pham, has some really fascinating thoughts and observations about the game of baseball. He's played for a long time. He's played for a bunch of different teams, and he really cares about the game, even if he's the kind of guy who will slap you over a fantasy football disagreement. Maybe not the most pleasant guy to have in a clubhouse. I think he really has fascinating observations about baseball. And something that Sam said to the Athletics, Saris one time was, and I'm paraphrasing, because pitchers aren't afraid of getting bit by the long ball at Kauffman Stadium, again, fourth hardest park to go yard in all of baseball. Because pitchers don't fear that, they pitch in the zone more often. They stay in the strike zone. They're not afraid to attack hitters because they're not as worried about the home run. And the data actually supports Pham's hypothesis. Over the 18-year history of pitch tracking, only 5 other teams in baseball have seen their pitching staffs pitch more in the strike zone in home games than the Royals. So the Royals, as a staff, remember raid the zone from Brian Sweeney's first season as a pitching coach? That's been an overarching philosophy, seemingly, for Royals pitchers. We're going to pitch in the strike zone. We're not going to be afraid of contact because this ballpark is going to hold some long fly balls. If the park holds fewer long fly balls, does that then incentivize Royals pitchers to work out of the zone? And not in the sense that you want to walk more guys, but does it encourage Royals pitchers to chase strikeouts? And could that, in turn, help pitchers who have seen a downtick in their strikeout numbers? That would include Seth Lugo. That would include Carlos Estevez. That would include Lucas Erceg, who was an elite strikeout guy until last year. All of a sudden, he wasn't. So that, to me, is just as interesting as who's going to hit more home runs or what batted balls are going to be home runs now that weren't before. How does this change the Royals' pitching philosophy? Do they start hunting strikeouts a little bit more? Do they start hunting strikeout pitchers a little bit more? Because they haven't really done that. They don't have, outside of Cole Reagan's, a lot of elite strikeout guys. Like Noah Cameron is not an elite bat misser. Carlos Estevez led the American League in saves last year, but did so with a very pedestrian 7.5 strikeouts per 9. Royals didn't have a regular reliever with over a strikeout per inning. The guy who had the most relief innings with a strikeout rate over 9 per 9 was Jonathan Bolin, and they traded him. Does that philosophically change a little bit? Do the Royals start pitching for the strikeout a little bit more often if they know that more of their mistakes might end up in the seats instead of safely in Kyle Isbell's glove? All of this stuff is going to be really interesting to watch, not just this next year, but the next 5. We're going to take a time out here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, we got around to What Is Wrong With You, and then Tim Fitzgerald joins us for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. It is What Is Wrong With You time here on 580 Sports Talk. We've got two new stories competing today. Our current weekly champion, wait, those aren't my jeans. A lot of elements to our story from Putnam County, Florida from yesterday. 58-year-old Wendy Messer throwing a plate of collard greens at somebody and held them at knife point, waved a skillet at another person. They had a lot of drugs on their person. Ms. Messer did. I'm going to err on the side of assuming she's not married. They found a lot of drugs in her jeans, and she said, "Wait a minute, these aren't mine. I've been set up. I was borrowing these jeans from a friend who apparently had a lot of crack on them." So, cops weren't buying that. She was arrested. But, yeah, that's our current weekly champion. We got two new stories today. Spencer, what do you got?
Yeah, we're going to go to Flagler County, Flagler County, Florida. A Palm Coast man wanted in Indiana was arrested Monday night on his 5th DUI after Flagler County deputies stopped him for reckless driving. According to the sheriff's office, deputies said they responded to State Road 100 and Old Kings Road after a caller reported the driver swerving on the road. A blue Ford pickup truck was soon spotted leaving a racetrack gas station with its headlights off, exiting through a do not enter lane and then cutting across 3 lanes of traffic before running a red light while making a U-turn. Deputies said the driver, later identified as Howard Johnson, who was 60, appeared nervous, slurred his speech, and had an open beer can in the passenger floorboard, according to a news release. Deputies said Johnson struggled to keep still, smelled strongly of alcohol, and was unable to complete portions of the field sobriety test. Based upon his driving, physical impairment, and performance on the exercises, deputies determined he was not safe to drive and arrested him. An inventory search of the truck uncovered additional open alcohol containers.
Yeesh.
He was arrested for DUI. Driving with a suspended license, was taken to Flagler County Jail, where he refused to submit to a breath test. Deputies said during the investigation they learned Johnson had an extensive criminal history in Indiana, including 4 prior DUI convictions. He was also wanted in Lake County, Indiana, on charges of dealing cocaine, possession of a firearm by a violent felon, and operating a vehicle while impaired, endangering a person. He's being held to Flagler County Jail on $81,000 bond for his most recent arrest and is awaiting extradition to Indiana on aforementioned charges.
This is not, in case anyone is wondering, former New York Met, Detroit Tiger, and Colorado Rocky Howard Johnson. This is a different guy.
You would think the guy who is in a different state might want to keep a low profile, considering he's wanted for a lot in a different state.
You would think that. My story today, we're going to Northern Virginia, Ripon Middle School.
I know where this is.
It's in Woodbridge, Virginia.
Yes.
And a teacher has been charged with assault and battery for throwing her shoe at a student last month. Incident happened December 17th in a hallway. The investigation revealed the teacher was speaking to an 11-year-old boy in the hallway, when at one point she removed her shoe and threw it at a student, striking him in the hand. 37-year-old Delia Pruitt of Triangle has been charged and released on a summons to appear in court. Look, I know you get fed up with those smart aleck little kids in your teaching job. You know how mad you got to be to take off your shoe and throw it? Like, to think about it is one thing. To do it, like, that's not like, oh, you just do it in a split second. You got to get down. You got to get your shoe off. You got to make sure it feels right in your hand, and you got to let it rip.
Yeah. That's
not like a split second decision. You got to go through stuff to decide you're going to throw a shoe at somebody, a kid. That is insane. I think that wins today. That does not beat the woman who was not in possession of the right jeans. Wait, these aren't my jeans. And she continues as our winner on What Is Wrong With You.
Yeah.
Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com joins us for the Wildcat Wrap-Up next on 580 Sports Talk. We are joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. This is the Wildcat Wrap-Up on 580 Sports Talk, sponsored by Tallgrass Windows and Doors, who provide high-quality products at affordable prices. You can check out their showrooms in either Wamego or Lawrence, or visit them online at tallgrasswindows.com. Excellence without exception. That's Tallgrass Windows and Doors. Fitz, one of my least favorite phrases in sports media, because I think it does get beaten to death a little bit, is to call something must win. But if there was ever a must win in the fourth Big 12 game of the season, it's tonight for Kansas State at home against UCF, isn't it?
Well, let's call it a must don't lose.
Sure, we can do that.
That's really what they need to do here is not lose. This one is big because you got Oklahoma State over the weekend, Kansas next week. I mean, you better get going. This is your most winnable game here. Last game was winnable, and you managed to lose that. So more than that, you got to protect your home court.
The thing that I have witnessed or observed watching Kansas State through this season, it just doesn't feel. You could tell me whether you think I'm out of line on this. It just doesn't feel like they've got the guys who would rather die than lose. They just don't seem to have the guys for whom losing is simply not an option. And maybe that's the kind of thing that you say to make you feel better about the fact that you don't have as much talent as the other guys across the way. But I thought Saturday was a very winnable game for Kansas State, and they were looking for somebody to grab them by the scruff of the neck down the stretch and get a stop, get a rebound, get a bucket. And there was just nobody who stepped forward to do it. Where is that sort of leadership, that sort of desire? Where is it on this roster? Because I haven't seen it yet, Fitz.
I haven't either. I mean, these are some good players, but you're right. They didn't react very well in that game. Well, they got a lead. They started to cruise. They fell behind by 9 and then tried to come back. You're right. They never looked like anyone said, okay, we're going to go win this one now. And that's such a big part of competition, just a determination to win. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but you lay it all on the line. And I think we can say that this team hasn't laid it all on the line even close. And when they're good, they're really good. When they're bad, they're not very inspiring.
Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com is our guest. This is the Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk. The big talent issue that Kansas State has right now is in the front court. Right now, they do not have a Big 12 caliber front court, and it's understandable when that gets exposed by BYU and Arizona, who have dudes and future pros at the 4 and at the 5 and a lot more size than Kansas State. But that kid for Arizona State was a freshman, and he looked like Dikembe Mutombo in his prime. And the other kid, Alan Mukeba, last seen playing at UMKC prior to or after a stint at Colby Community College, where I actually got to see him play in person. He's out there rim running and blocking shots. And Kansas State can't keep anybody off the glass, and they can't protect the rim. Why do you think that group in particular has fallen short? Is it an experience issue, or did they just not throw enough resources at the front court in the offseason?
Well, they came up short. One guy, they really wanted to get another big guy that was, capable of playing a lot of minutes, and they didn't. And they've got Moby, who's injured now, and that hurts them. Any injury along that front line is so thin, it just really weakens it exponentially. And let's admit it, they're just not very good up front. They've got guys that can play well enough to get you by, but they just don't have enough. Nobody scares anyone in the middle. And other teams seem to have that.
Tonight, UCF comes to town. They're a team that was in the top 25. They had a home win over Kansas early. They lost to Oklahoma State last week, so they dropped out of the top 25 this week. But this doesn't feel like a great matchup for Kansas State either, because they feel like they've got the sort of size and bounce in the post that Kansas State doesn't seem to have. What's your take on tonight's matchup? What is Kansas State going to have to do if they're going to pull out a win tonight?
I agree with you that Kansas State's just going to have to play extremely hard, and and play fast. Try to negate some of those size issues by getting into the open court. This UCF team has been overachieving this season, but most of their damage they've done is coming home. So maybe getting them out on the road like Oklahoma State did last week will be an advantage for K-State. But this is going to be a tough game. I was really surprised to see K-State was favored in this one. But it's a Big 12 play. When you go on the road, it's going to get difficult.
Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline is Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com here on 580 Sports Talk. This is the Wildcat Wrap-Up, sponsored by Tallgrass Windows and Doors. Let's pivot to football and the latest from the transfer portal. Wendell Gregory is a Kansas State Wildcat. How big a get is this for Kansas State? Not just from the perspective of they're getting a good player, but the fact that they got a good player ahead of a lot of other big dogs in the transfer portal recruiting world, that this young man decided to go to Kansas State. How big a deal is this?
Yeah, it's really big. A lot of schools were after him. There's talk that a lot of schools didn't want to pay the price, which I find interesting because K-State's not a school that's going to, in football at least, win a bidding war. So there must have been another connection there, or maybe everyone bailed out. I'm not sure, but this is a good get. And they backed it up today, or I guess recently, last night, with another edge defender to come in as they bolster that part of the lineup. And it's really good to see them go get a dude, that a lot of people wanted, and they won the battle for him. He can close out possessions now. He can get after the quarterback.
What is your understanding of the NIL commitment that Kansas State has been able to make in the transfer portal? Has there been an increase in that relative to recent years, or has it held pretty steady and they're just kind of being a little choosier as to who's going to get that NIL money out of the portal?
I think it's a little improved, but not necessarily because Colin Klein came in. I think it was probably just improved, but I think it'll get there. I think, with a number of opportunities to get out and meet people and talk to these donors that are capable of helping NIL, he'll get it raised. I'm guessing it's in the $25 million range, which, it keeps it a little bit underwater nationally, but in the upper half of the Big 12, certainly. And you got to keep this in mind. They had money tied up in players like Dylan Edwards, Chase Brown, and Toby Osunsami. So when those guys left, that loosened up some pretty good cash. And I think we've seen them go out and spend it on guys they feel like will help more than those guys did.
Real quick, since you brought up his name, a lot of the high-profile Kansas State transfers were in demand and made a bunch of visits, and some of them committed real early. Like Toby Osunsami ended up in Indiana real early in the process. Jace Brown had a lot of suitors, ended up at LSU. Oscar Romaines at Texas Tech. Haven't heard word one about Dylan Edwards. And maybe most K-State fans don't care, and they're happy to see the back of him, but are you a little surprised that there hasn't been as much traction there with Edwards finding a home this early in the process?
I think, yeah, I am. I thought, there's always someone that'll say, man, you can't coach speed. You gotta go recruit that. And maybe they're just being very cautious, but I think what happened last season with Dylan, with him being unable to play for much of the season for an injury most of us didn't understand. It didn't seem that injured. It seemed more about emotional issues. I think coaches pick up on that, and they shy away from it. You can't introduce that into your locker room. I think K-State experienced that the last 2 years, having some negative forces in the locker room. And I think I'm not surprised. The coaches are probably being cautious bringing them in.
What do you think of the running back room the K-State has assembled for next year? Joe Jackson, Rodney Fields, Jay Harris, the latest one out of Oregon. What do you think of that trio and the kind of impact that could have, the kind of production that it could have in Colin Klein's offense?
Yeah, it's a heck of a lot better than last year. I'll tell you that. You got some real running backs because Dylan Edwards thinks of himself as a running back, but he's really more of a slot kind of guy. And they got some dudes back there. I love Rodney Fields. The Oregon kid is also promising as depth. But I think Joe Jackson figured it out last year, and I think this running back room is in pretty good shape.
We're joined by Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. And Tim, I saw last week that K-State was trying to make a push for Topeka product Trey Richardson. Do you know how close they were, if they were even close to getting him to commit to K-State?
I think they were involved in it. My understanding is he had a number in mind, and Kansas State was willing to meet that number. Louisville must have wanted him pretty badly because they doubled it. And K-State said, yeah, we're not doing that. So off to Louisville he goes. It's kind of funny. He wanted to get closer to home and didn't accomplish that. But he did get more money than what I think he expected. I think K-State was really disappointed in that one. They had a good feeling about it and thought he was a guy that would fit really well with them, and it fell through.
K-State's published all the coaches they've hired so far. Do you anticipate do you anticipate any more hires before the preseason starts?
Yeah, I think we'll see some more. They have an assistant coach for almost every position group, but not all of them. So I think they'll probably fill that in as we go here. And some of these guys they brought in really make me optimistic. And even these analysts are really high-level guys. I know a lot of people don't know who Scotty O'Hara is. Scotty has been at K-State before. He is a Dana Dimmel disciple. He was with Coach Dimmel quite a bit. Was with Colin down in College Station. He's just a really bright offensive mind. And Scotty looks like he's going to be assistant coach for the running backs, but he really has an understanding of offensive scheming, and just having him in your analyst room is really going to help the offense, I feel like. And that's not just him. I feel across the board and looking at the guys that I know, they're all pretty darn good.
Couple more questions for Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com, joining us for the Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk. Sean Gleason is the new offensive coordinator at Kansas State, comes to K-State from Mizzou, where he spent the last 2 years coaching the quarterbacks. How does he, in your mind, complement Colin Klein and Colin Klein's vision for offense at Kansas State?
Well, it sounds like he and the offensive line coach both come from shotgun offenses that are run heavy and power running, which is kind of interesting to me. But that sure does sound like something Colin Klein would enjoy, because that's what he was as a player, mixing in throw to keep you honest. And so I think Colin took his time to find the right guy that kind of sees offense the same way as him. He started at Princeton, was great there, went to Oklahoma State, and kind of butted heads with Mike Gundy. They had a little bit of a different offensive philosophy, and Gundy kept kind of inserting himself into the play calling when Gleason thought he was going to do it. So that only lasted a year before he went to Rutgers and then Missouri. Well, I find it interesting because I expect Colin to do a lot of play calling. Maybe I'm wrong. I think all of us do. That's his expertise. Now Gleason's come in, but I think that might be more about he's on the same page offensively. They're in tune with each other, and we may not be able to tell who's calling the plays.
Last one for you, Fitz. It was announced today that Terrence Newman is a member of the 2026 class of the College Football Hall of Fame. Give me a good Terrence Newman story.
Well, I don't like him because if it wasn't for Terrence Newman, I'd be the pride and joy of Salina, Kansas. But no.
That would be Jake LeBon, probably.
Jake could be third. Come on.
Forever a bronze medalist, Jake. Yeah.
Yeah, Jake's like a green bean salad. Enjoyable, but come on, you're not getting that first. Terrence is an great person. Has always been that way. In high school, he was a kind guy, and he is the epitome of developmental player. He was not a very good football player when he came in. He was a track guy. Ran track at K-State, but his level of fast was undeniable. So Coach Snyder took him and taught him how to play cornerback. They literally from the ground up taught him, and he wasn't really ready to step on the field until the end of his sophomore season. And when they had a player not able to go, I don't remember who it was. Maybe his name was Wally Pipp. They threw him into the starting lineup at the Cotton Bowl against Tennessee, and he had to cover Dante Stallworth. That's his first assignment full-time as a starter, and he shut him down. And from that moment on, Terrence Newman was a star. And what he did in that USC game, the loudest game I've ever heard what was then KSU Stadium was when they beat USC, and a scoop and score that was just spectacular. He's always fun to watch. And that was a scoop and score off a blocked extra point. Always fun to watch, incredibly athletic, and just a competitor. Just has that exactly what we were just talking about basketball. He didn't want to lose, never wanted to lose. And boy, he had enjoyed a really long, wonderful NFL career, but I'm glad he's getting honored for what he did in college, because it was pretty remarkable how quickly he developed and how good he got.
Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com joins us every Wednesday here on 580 Sports Talk for the Wildcat Wrap-Up, sponsored by Tallgrass Windows and Doors, who provide high-quality products at affordable prices. You can check out their showrooms in either Wamego or Lawrence, or visit them online at tallgrasswindows.com. Excellence without exception. That's Tallgrass Windows and Doors. Always great to hear from you, Fitz. We'll do it again next week.
Thank you, boys.
That is Tim Fitzgerald. We're overdue for a timeout. We'll come back and wrap up this 4 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. Wrapping up this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Again, our thanks to Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com for joining us. We'll have some more thoughts on that K-State UCF matchup tonight coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll also play a round of One Gotta Go. Also have a lot of sports headlines to get to at the top of the next hour as well. Remember, your texts are welcome, 785-272-9429. You can also hop into the live chat on our live YouTube stream. The name of the YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Go smash that subscribe button today. Dan and Spencer with you for one more hour. Hang with us through the news break. We're back with more 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Third and final hour of 580 Sports Talk on this Wednesday afternoon. Thanks so much for being with us on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and live on our streaming video channels, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube, WIBW News on Facebook. I am Dan Lucero. Spencer Dupuis is across the glass. We've got one more hour to hang out together before we pass the baton to the K-State Sports Network from Learfield. Wildcat men's basketball tonight from the Octagon. The Cats and the Knights on the cock. K-State UCF playing on Peacock tonight.
Or NBC Sports Network.
Yeah, you YouTube TV folks have those special little channels. Some of us just subscribe to Peacock because our kids like to watch Barney. Some of us don't subscribe to Peacock at all. For those of you who fit that category, you're going to want to listen to the game tonight. We've got you covered right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. Pregame at 6, tip-off at 7.
I used to be subscribed to Peacock.
Yeah?
For free. Because where I used to live, it used to be included in Xfinity.
Yeah.
And then those greedy bleepers decided that you can't get a free anything because you are subscribed to their owned Wi-Fi system.
Yeah. So yeah, we started with it free as well. I forget why it was that we decided.
Used to have a free tier.
Yeah, they did. They had a free tier. I forget why it was we decided we were going to pay for it. But we do.
Do you watch The Office?
No. I watched it when it was originally on. That is not a show I've ever had the desire to go back and revisit. Like,
I'll tell you what.
And I loved it. Like, don't get me wrong. I was a religious viewer of The Office. I watched every episode of the original run. Like, I was there for like the first season, which was totally weird. And I was there throughout. Michael Scott left the show, and Andy Bernard turned into a bottom 5 character in the history of television. And I was out. I came back for the finale, but when Michael Scott got on that airplane, I was out. I didn't need to watch it anymore. But I was a huge fan of the show. But it is not one of those that I've ever had the desire to be like, yeah, I want to run this back. And I don't know why that is, because I did. I loved that show. But it's never been one. Like, I ran back Parks and Rec. I rewatched that show.
I've watched that show 3 times.
I've rewatched Parks and Rec. I would, and I'd rewatch it again if my wife wanted to. There have been shows I've run back, like The Simpsons. I've watched every episode of The Simpsons from seasons 1 through 11, minimum dozen times each. But yeah, The Office is never one I've really wanted to revisit.
The Office
GT, the YouTube comments has it right. It's not The Simpsons. I'm not interested. Yeah, pretty much. If I'm going to watch old TV, I'm going to watch Homer playing softball with Darryl Strawberry. Like, I'm not going to go back and watch Michael Scott do cringe comedy and Jim Halpert look at the camera funny. Like, I enjoyed it in its time, and I'm just going to leave it in its time.
The Office is something that I will admit didn't watch while it was on TV because I was pretty young.
Uh-huh.
But it is something that was just on. I just put on.
Sure.
If I needed to do something, I just throw it on. Like if I had if I was doing homework, just throw it on.
No, I get it. People have like those comfort food shows. That's why they got so popular on
but it's because it's so easy.
Friends
like,
is another one of those.
Like if you watch one season, even in just a few episodes, like you get it.
Yeah.
It's not a show that you have to religiously pay attention to every single second to understand it.
Exactly.
So I would be like, oh, well, I'm doing this. And then the next thing I know, we're 4 episodes later. And it's like, well, it's the same thing, different day.
Also, it's one of those shows that like the funny bits have all been made into like memes and GIFs over the years. Like, I don't need to rewatch the episode where Michael declares bankruptcy. I can hear it in my head. And it's funny to me still, but I don't need to go rewatch the whole episode.
Never mind.
All right.
I not want to share this on the radio.
All right. Fair enough. Anyway, what were we talking about? Peacock. I'm going to say this about the picture quality of everything that Peacock streams and that NBC airs. It's better than the other networks. Like picture quality, NBC/Peacock, it looks better than CBS. It looks better than Fox. It looks better than ABC, ESPN. They just use better cameras.
Except, I will say, Peacock is starting to do the for some college basketball games, they're starting to do the ESPN Plus thing.
Uh-huh.
To where you like lower conferences, you let the schools produce it.
Yeah.
Not great. They had a game on SVP Sports Center last night, and that quality looked like it was coming from a camera from the 1990s.
Anyway.
And then I realized it was playing, and then I did some digging and realized, yeah, it's a team-produced broadcast.
Anyway, so if you're not a Peacock subscriber, if you have not enjoyed shows like Poker Face, which is really good, 2 seasons, Natasha Lyonne from what's called Orange is the New Black, that show's great. I would tell anybody, subscribe to it for a month and blow through the 2 seasons of that. That show rocks. There's some other stuff I'm sure on there too. My kid, God bless him, likes Barney. We're going to do something about that when he gets a little older. But if you are not a Peacock subscriber, you'll not be able to watch K-State tonight. So listen to the game right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. We'll have some more thoughts on that a little bit later on this hour. Also going to play a round of One Gotta Go. We got 580 Sports Talk headlines as well. Want to hear from you on the text line? 785-272-9429 is the number, 785-272-9429. You can also interact with us in the live chat on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. We are live every day on the YouTube, just as we are live on the radio. And there's a live chat feature on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, where you can hop in and say hello. You can also get your song submissions in for Tuesday's 580 Sports Talk Idol. Get those submissions in. We're taking them through tomorrow's show. And here's a challenge to our listeners. Submit a song that came out when Spencer was alive.
Please.
You know what? Submit a song that came out when Brendan was alive. Because there are a lot of songs out there, and I see the requests. They come down the pike on the live chat and in the text line. And a lot of them are very good and would make for very funny karaoke songs. They are also, many of them, older than me. So
that also might be
so if there
the
is
people watching our program.
Yes, it could be that the people requesting the songs, that is of their generation, and that is no disrespect intended.
Yeah, no.
But if you would like to request a song that has been played on a hot AC or top 40 country radio station in the last 5 years, you can do that too. That is allowed. It'd probably be easier for us to find karaoke versions of some of those songs too. Here, texter from the 913 submits the Barney theme song. Man, listen, I'm so tired of that song. But you know what?
If anybody who's not familiar and wants to request any songs by Luke Holmes talking about a kind of alcohol never breaking his heart, we're in.
That's your go-to?
That could be my go-to.
That could be your go-to. The Barney theme song. I know the words by heart. And not because my kid likes it, and because sometimes I will sing it to him to try and get him to sleep. So that is one I have some experience singing very, very quietly. Mark H in the YouTube comment says Sesame Street theme. Another one I know very well.
I'll do a
that one I can tolerate my son watching, because you know who my kid loves right now? Elmo.
I'll do a karaoke version of the commercial for Cars for Kids.
We wouldn't get DMCA'd for that. I can guarantee you that's going to be the trick of this. Is we think we'll be okay with the karaoke versions, the karaoke backing tracks, but just in case, if you're going to watch this on the YouTube, you're probably going to want to watch it live, because you never know who might play games with the copyright and get us, sent to the memory hole.
What we got to do when we're doing this, we're about to start this segment. We have to. There's a feature on our back end video where you can record. We got to make sure that we record that.
That's true. Yeah.
So then we have it whenever it's gone off YouTube, if that happens. Right.
Jeffrey in the YouTube comment says one of those sad PETA songs. In the Arms of an Angel by Sarah McLachlan. We all know that one. Boy,
he's got some bonus karaoke content.
That would set a tone. For the day. Anyhow,
I think we've got some headlines today.
We do. Keep those requests coming. We're going to get to some headlines here. Some 580 Sports Talk headlines. We're going to start something I alluded to when we were talking to Tim Fitzgerald in the last hour. Terrence Newman is a part of the College Football Hall of Fame class of 2026. The pride of Salina, Kansas, and Kansas State University. He is the 7th Kansas State player or coach to be selected to college football's highest honor, and the 4th of the last 15 years. He joins former running back Darren Sproles, linebackers Gary Spandy and Mark Simino, and coaches Pappy Waldorf, Charles Bachman, and Bill Snyder in the Hall of Fame. He's actually 8th. He's actually going to be the 8th, and we'll get to number 8 here later on in this list. Terrence Newman, unbelievable college player, consensus All-American as a senior, as a defensive back, and as a return man. Went on to a very, very long and successful NFL career, but an all-time great cat. He's on the Ring of Honor at Bill Snyder Family Stadium, and now he is a college football Hall of Famer. I was saying this earlier, Spencer, when you weren't on the air yet, at the very top of the show. I think the College Football Hall of Fame is my favorite Hall of Fame because they put out a long list of finalists, and then they just tell you what the class is. And it's always just a bunch of guys you remember being really, really cool.
Yeah.
And so it's really fun, other than with the football one, you get bogged down with I don't know if that guy's a Hall of Famer or this guy should get in before that guy. With the College Football Hall of Fame, it's these finalists, yeah, they all belong. And then they put 20 of them in every year. And instead of thinking about the guys who didn't get in, you look at the guys who did, and you're like, oh, man, I remember this guy. This guy ruled. I love this guy. So here's the class of 2026 for the College Football Hall of Fame. New Hampshire running back Jerry Azuma. I got to admit, I'm not up on Jerry Azuma's resume at UNH back in the mid-'90s, but I digress. Penn State running back Kajana Carter. UTA offensive lineman Bruce Cawley. Again, not up on his tape. Oklahoma linebacker George Cumby. Pittsburgh defensive tackle Aaron Donald. Remember when people didn't think Aaron Donald was going to be a good pro because he was too small?
Yeah.
And then he was the best defensive player of his generation. Yeah, he ruled in college. Syracuse return man and wide receiver, and we don't say his name because he's a dangerous man. Harvin Marison. Don't tell anybody I said his name. Please. Keep his name out of your mouth, but he's a College Football Hall of Famer. Georgia running back Garrison Hurst, Colorado defensive back Chris Hudson, Alabama running back Mark Ingram, Washington center Olin Kreutz, Ohio State linebacker James Laurinaitis, Northern Illinois quarterback Jordan Lynch. This one made me smile. I hadn't thought about Jordan Lynch in 10 years. Class of 2013. He was awesome. He was one of those guys who was fun to play on the video game. He always gave Northern Illinois a couple of games on NCAA football because Jordan Lynch was that good. Herman Moore, Virginia wide receiver. United States Military Academy offensive guard Bob Novogratz. Ndamukong Suh from Nebraska. I contend to this day that Ndamukong Suh should have won the Heisman Trophy in 2009. And when he didn't, that meant that no other defensive player should ever win the Heisman Trophy. Because if they didn't give it to Ndamukong Suh in 2009, then they should never give it to a defensive player because no defensive player will ever be good enough to win it because no defensive player has ever been as good as Ndamukong Suh that year. Nebraska's quarterbacks that year were so bad, and the Huskers were a second away from winning the Big 12 championship that year because they had Ndamukong Suh. It was unbelievable. I was covering the Huskers that year. I was living in Nebraska, working in sports radio out there. I was covering the Huskers. Suh was an unbelievable college player. Just incredible. Peter Warwick from Florida State, one of the coolest wide receivers ever. And Eric Weddle, University of Utah safety. Coaches being inducted this year include Chris Peterson, formerly of Boise State and the University of Washington. Jim Margraf, longtime head coach at Division III Johns Hopkins. And the pride of Roselle, Kansas, and a former K-State linebacker, Gary Patterson, the longtime head coach at TCU. So actually 2 people with K-State ties getting into the College Football Hall of Fame this year. That's just a fun trip down memory lane every year to remember some college football guys. It never really worked out for Peter Warwick in the pros, and that still stuns me. He played for the Seahawks on a team that went to the playoffs, and I have zero memory of Peter Warwick as a Seahawk. He was on the team, and I don't remember him as a pro at all. But as a college player, man, imagine him and Randy Moss on the same team.
Bro.
Moss was committed to Florida State.
Yeah.
And had obviously some off the field issues.
He was at Florida State.
Oh, yeah, he was there. He was committed to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And had to back out of that. Yeah, he was at Florida State. Him and Peter Warrick practiced together on the same
And then he violated his probation.
Yes, he did. And ended up at Marshall, and the rest is Thundering Herd history. But, dude, imagine Randy Moss and Peter Warrick on the same college team. That would have been unfair. Anyhow, next headline, Spencer.
Yeah, portal news for K-State. Kennesaw State edge Elijah Hill has committed to the Wildcats. Also, NCAA transfer portal news elsewhere. Dante Moore to return to Oregon for the 2026 season, forgo the NFL draft this year, which means newly transferred in quarterback, a.k.a. Patrick Mahomes Jr.,
Dylan Raiola
is going to redshirt a year, which might do him some good.
So I think he probably will. Like, two things here. First, Dante Moore sat a year.
Yeah.
Behind Dylan Gabriel when he transferred to Oregon from UCLA. So there's precedent here.
Yeah.
Surely Raiola had to know there was a chance this would happen when he committed to Oregon. The other part, too, Raiola suffered a pretty significant leg injury in October of this season. So he's got a chance to get that all the way healed up and have a redshirt year. Probably will do him a lot of good, to be honest, because the production at Nebraska did not match the 5-star hype. And that was the case for Dylan Moore at UCLA. Like, his production didn't match his prospect hype. And then he sat a year, and he then got the reins at Oregon and had a great season this last year and would have been a first-round pick in the NFL draft, because
that changes a lot of teams' first-round boards.
This first round, the talent in this year's NFL draft stinks. Like, it is a stinky draft. It is a good draft to have the number 9 overall pick. So the Chiefs have to feel pretty good that they pick, at least they pick high. Because, like, the top of the draft has some players. But, like, this is such a bad draft to need a quarterback. It's Mendoza and it's Ty Simpson. And other than that, you're talking yourself into somebody. And really, you're talking yourself into Ty Simpson, who we talked about him. I like Ty Simpson's tools. There have been times I've watched Ty Simpson out of Alabama and thought, oh, yeah, that looks like an NFL quarterback to me. That looks like an NFL arm to me. And then he plays a good team, and it goes very poorly for him. And that doesn't augur well to the NFL, where everyone is good. So, except the Jets. But, yeah, that affects the draft. That affects Dylan Raiola. That certainly impacts Oregon for next year with Dante Moore returning for 2026. Sounds like a lot of Oregon's draft eligible players that can return are going to. They're going to back. They're going to try to run it back and make another run at that school's first NCAA championship. Question from the text line from the 785. Regarding draft eligible quarterbacks, Garrett Nussmeier and Lenora Sellers in particular. I think Sellers has another year. If he doesn't, he should ask for one.
Yeah. Get it.
Physically, you can like talk yourself into the physical traits there, but he's been hurt each of the last 2 years and wasn't real good this last year. Garrett Nussmeier was banged up too. He strikes me as maybe the guy who's going to be a quarterback needy team is going to wait till day 2, maybe even early day 3, and pick him up and give him an opportunity. Just because he sort of fits the mold of, oh yeah, he's a pocket passer. We can work with this. But I'll tell you this, if you are a team that is in dire need of a quarterback, you're looking for your next franchise quarterback, unless you pick number 1, I don't think you're going to find him.
Yep.
This could be worse than the Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis draft. Because at least that one had Brock Purdy as Mr. Irrelevant, right?
Yeah.
I like Mendoza. Don't get me wrong. I like Fernando Mendoza. I think he's got like the it factor. I don't think he's a guy that I look at and think best case scenario, he ends up on the Mahomes, Josh Allen tier of quarterbacks. I don't know that he's the guy you think, oh yeah, I'm going to win a championship with Fernando Mendoza. I think he'd be your starting quarterback and you can be good, but is he the guy that you win with, or is he the guy you win because of? I think it's more likely he's the former than the latter. And I think there are a lot of other guys on that draft board at quarterback who are guys that you don't do anything with. Next headline here on our 580 Sports Talk headlines. While we're on the topic of the National Football League, a couple of NFL headlines from today. 2-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Adam Thielen calling it a career. Did you remember he was on the Steelers until Week 18? If you had forgotten that until watching the Week 18 game, you're not alone, because I was in the same boat. The 35-year-old Thielen had indicated this would be his final season when the Vikings waived him on December 1st, and he formally announced his retirement in a social media post today. Thielen had a really nice career. 542 receptions as a member of the Vikings, fourth most in team history behind 2 Hall of Famers and 1 future Hall of Famer in Justin Jefferson. The Hall of Famers, obviously, Chris Carter and Randy Moss. Yeah. 704 career catches, 8,497 yards, 64 touchdowns in 12 seasons. Not too shabby for an undrafted rookie free agent out of Minnesota State. Good career, solid player, Adam Thielen, calling it a career. Also, NFL
that
headline.
Tells me real fast. That tells me that they got somebody, that the Vikings had a scout in the state of Minnesota that knew what he was doing.
Oh, for sure.
Like the small school scouts, man, you can hit it and you can miss it, but they hit it on that one.
2 other quick NFL headlines. One about a team that is eliminated. One about a team that is not. At a postseason press conference, Jacksonville Jaguars general manager James Gladstone says they still plan on Travis Hunter playing both sides of the ball in 2026. I think that's a mistake, man.
Yeah, but man, just let him play corner and call it a day.
They're set at wide receiver, and they need a starting level cornerback. Like, solves both your problems. And like, if you want to use him as a gadget wide receiver, like here and there, sure. But don't go into next year thinking you're going to get 50 snaps on both sides of the ball from Travis Hunter. That'd be nonsense. Like, you still want to use him as a part-time wide receiver, sure, but they got to commit to him on the defensive side of the ball. Meanwhile, the headline about the team that is still in it, the San Francisco 49ers may be getting a massive and unexpected boost in their divisional round playoff game against the Seattle Seahawks Saturday night, as linebacker Fred Warner, who's had his practice window opened for a return from IR, says he's not ruling out a return to the lineup this Saturday. Warner is returning from a fractured and dislocated right ankle. The initial belief was that Warner could return for the NFC Championship game should the Niners get there, but Warner telling local media today he could be back even sooner than that. Obviously, that would be a big deal for a putrid 49ers, what has become a putrid and injury-riddled 49ers defense, but how effective is Warner really going to be coming off of an injury like that if indeed he is able to return? If he is not able to play, Eric Kendricks will start again at middle linebacker alongside Garrett Wallow.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. All right, you got another headline, Spence?
Yeah, not an official headline, but it is something to keep an eye on for when the Chiefs do put something out. Xavier Worthy took to his Instagram story from a hospital bed earlier today, saying that he had successful surgery on what, you might ask? I don't know. Looked like a shoulder area. Could potentially be the injury from the preseason. I don't know.
Or from week one.
That's what I meant, week one, yes.
It was not a good year for Xavier Worthy, and the hope is that was basically a result of an injury. So honestly not surprised. Never felt like he was 100%. Not surprised he had some kind of cleanup procedure done, if indeed that's what it was.
Yeah, the only thing I question is why not just shut it down after Pat got hurt?
Somebody had to play.
They had guys.
Yeah, but did they? Like,
no,
those guys weren't real good.
But yes.
Last headline real quick from Major League Baseball. The Boston Red Sox had been the final team in Major League Baseball not to have signed a Major League free agent this offseason. That has changed. They have signed left-handed pitcher Ranger Suarez to what is reportedly a 5-year deal worth $130 million. Suarez has spent the entirety of his 8-year Major League career with the Philadelphia Phillies. He was an all-star in 2024, left-handed starting pitcher who has put together some steady excellence from 2022 to 2025 as a member of the Philadelphia rotation. That'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We're going to come back, play a little round of One Gotta Go. That's next on 580 Sports Talk. It's time for a round of One Gotta Go here on 580 Sports Talk. I've got two of them. They're the same line of thinking. They involve the coaches in the NFL playoffs. I'll give you the 4 AFC coaches left. Those are, of course, Denver's Sean Payton, New England's Mike Vrabel, Houston's DeMeco Ryans, and Buffalo's Sean McDermott. One gotta go, Spencer.
Ooh. Based on what, though? Am I just making this up?
Based on whatever. Like, based on how good a coach you think they are, based on how much you might want to hang out with them. Like, there's 4 of them. One of them's got to go. I'm looking at it. I will be answering from a football perspective for what it is worth.
I know. I'm trying to figure out this is. That's a very good one. I'm going to say Sean Payton just because I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Sean Payton.
I don't like Sean Payton. You see the clip today? Somebody was asking him a question, like a football question, and he just ridiculed him.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the guy.
He's absolutely an ass, like 100%. Sean Payton, total jerk. Coach, man, the offense is not outmoded. Like, he can still scheme it up to get results with a limited passer. And let's be honest about Drew Brees late in his career. Like, Drew Brees could still process like Drew Brees, which is what made him great. But his arm was limited. He was limited as to what he could do moving around. He was limited in what he could do, like throwing the ball down the field. Sean Payton made it shake. Those Saints teams with Brees were always really, really good despite those limitations. And he's got a limited quarterback now in Bo Nix, but that team has had good results. So respect Sean Payton's game as an offensive schemer. I thought when he came back to the league that maybe the league would have passed him by a little bit. That doesn't appear to have been the case. My one got to go. It's McDermott here because I still think his game management leaves the most to be desired. I mean, we've seen more of it on a big stage because his teams have played on big stages more than Vrabel's and more than DeMeco Ryans's. But McDermott to me is the shakiest in a playoff setting of the 4 right now. I think he's the coach that I would trust the least, which is funny because I picked the Bills to win the AFC. I don't think he's a bad coach. I just think I would trust him the least of those 4.
Yeah.
Anyway, because I think he does a really good job. I think the fact that the Bills defense is getting any stops at any point during a game with the guys they have available, with the guys they're dressing, is a testament to Sean McDermott as a coach. So, NFC head coaches left. Mike McDonald of the Seahawks, Kyle Shanahan of the 49ers, Sean McVay of the Rams, Ben Johnson of the Bears. One's got to go.
This is easy. I'm not a Ben Johnson fan. Especially after last weekend.
Yeah, he spurned the Commanders, right?
Well, he spurned the Commanders, and then just the duty is what he did.
Fair enough.
Sportsmanship wise,
didn't like the handshake of LaFleur at the end of the playoff game. I respect that.
Also, 2 of those other guys, they were once a part of the coaching staff. The old graphic.
Now, who do I trust the least is, seen Kyle Shanahan get to 2 Super Bowls. We've also seen what has happened in those 2 Super Bowls. We've also seen what he did as the offensive coordinator in a 3rd. That's not great, but he's gotten there. Sean McVay's got a ring. Mike McDonald, I don't know what to expect from the Seahawks and from McDonald in a playoff setting. We've never seen it before. So for that reason, he might be the guy I say is maybe the shakiest on the shakiest ground just in terms of trust level as a head coach. But he's also the head coach of my favorite team, so I'll be damned if he's going to be the one that has to go. So I'll say Ben Johnson, too. Ben Johnson, after all, did call a wide receiver reverse pass in the NFC Championship game last year.
Yeah.
With his team trailing. That was stupid.
No, it wasn't the NFC Championship.
No, yeah, the divisional round. Round. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Thank you for the clarification. Have you got a one got to go today?
I've got a weird one got to go. So I am one of the people in America right now that does not have cellular device service.
Verizon's still not back up?
Because I am on Verizon, and it might be because my number is a phone number from Northern Virginia. So I'm still on SOS mode.
You got SOS mode. Dang.
Yes.
Wow. That T-Mobile would never.
If
Anyway.
you were stuck without one of these for a day, which would you rather go without a day?
Okay.
Cell phone service, Wi-Fi, or access to a vehicle? Because I can still use Wi-Fi, but I've needed to call people today, and I've had to call them from the office phone.
I want to explain.
Very inconvenient when we only have office phones in the studio.
I want to explain something about where we work. We're up on Huntoon Hill. We refer to it as here. And if you live in Topeka and you're familiar with where the Connoisseur Media Studios are, pretty steep. I wouldn't want to walk or bike that for a day.
That's true.
So I would say cell service because I'm okay if nobody calls me because generally nobody calls me. I don't call
Today's just been the day where I need to talk to people.
Sure.
And I've been like FaceTime audio, like my family.
Well, I mean, yeah, like Wi-Fi, you can make it shake. Like you could send texts on if you got the iPhone, and I'm sure other phones, you can make it shake and send text on Wi-Fi. But yeah, if it was just like cell phone, like the ability to call people, I would not miss that. I could lose that for a week and I wouldn't miss it. Honest to goodness.
I think I usually wouldn't miss it, but like I'm trying to figure out a lot of things right now.
Sure.
When, like contacting people, but also like I'm dealing with UPS on some BS.
Okay. You got some maintenance going on at the crib.
And that, so people like they were calling us and I couldn't answer the phone because I didn't have cell phone service.
So I get that. Like when you need to make a phone call and you don't have it. But
it's like of all days, the day in which I was supposed to call Cox about the internet service, UPS.
I'm not a phone call person. Just text me, man. Just text me. I'm like, I would rather just be texted than have somebody call me. And I don't like to call people either. Like that's not my favorite thing to do. So that would be my answer there. We'll take a quick break here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll come back, look ahead to tonight's K-State basketball game. You'll hear it right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. Cats trying to avoid an 0-4 start to Big 12 play against UCF tonight. We'll talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. .542 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan and Spencer hanging out with you. Coming down the home stretch of this Wednesday edition of the show. If you missed any of it, you can catch the podcast in audio form on our website, 580wibw.com, or on Spotify by searching 580 Sports Talk. You can also watch the archived video stream on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel today. If you have not already, you can watch 580 Sports Talk episodes dating all the way back to Halloween of 2022. That's how far back our video archives go. You can pick a random show and pick like a random segment, and then you come back and say, hey, Dan, remember in February of 2024 you said this? That was stupid. That ended up not happening. And I will say, yeah, that's, when you're right 52% of the time, you're wrong 48% of the time.
You could also go to the January 16th, 2024 show and see my debut show.
That was your debut. We're coming up on 2 years of Spencer.
On Friday.
Yeah. Coming up on 2 years of Spencer Dupuis on the program.
Was supposed to be tomorrow, but darn holiday landed on what was supposed to be my first day of work.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Martin Luther King Day was 15th that year. That's right. We will be taking Martin Luther King Day off this year as well. We will not have a show on Monday the 19th. We'll come back on the 20th with 580 Sports Talk Idol. As promised, you got us to 900 subscribers, so we're going to sing for you. Keep the submissions for songs coming. We're going to draw them on Friday. We'll each draw a song, and then we'll draw a duet for whoever loses the competition. Earlier, we were trying to come up with ideas for the episode, or not episode, but the 1,000th subscriber. And we had a text that asked us, what about when do the 580 male pose calendars come out? And buddy, friend, if you want one of those, I don't know what to tell you. I think if we said that's what we were going to do at 1,000 subscribers, we would go to 0 subscribers in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
This is not beefcake you're dealing with here, folks. I eat a lot of beef and a lot of cake, but it would not be a beefcake calendar that anybody would want, that anybody would purchase, that anybody would ever want to see. But no idea is a bad idea. Maybe that leads us to the thing that we might end up doing when we do get to 1,000 subscribers, which we are 93 away from as of earlier during the show. We were at 907 subscribers. Anyhow, K-State basketball tonight. You hear it right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. 6 o'clock pregame coverage, 7 o'clock the tip from Bramlage Coliseum as the UCF Knights come calling. UCF, number 46 in the Ken Palm. They're 13-2 overall. Did I say 46? I meant 46. 46 in the Ken Palm. They're 13-2 overall. They were briefly into the top 25 in the AP poll last week after they had beaten Kansas in Orlando, and then they lost to Oklahoma State. So that was the end of that. Kansas State, for what's worth, 76th in the Ken Palm. So the Ken Palm numbers would point to a UCF victory. The Vegas betting line is favoring Kansas State. They have been the favorites throughout the week, and checking the latest line over at the Prairie Band Sportsbook up in Mayetta, Kansas State remains a 2.5-point favorite. This is the trend in college basketball, and I noticed it in the Big 12 last year. And this is, I think, the reason for optimism for Kansas State tonight. They are a wounded animal on their home floor. Kind of like Kansas was last night. Now, you're dealing with a different level of wounded animal there. Kansas is, even though they had started 1-2 in the Big 12, that is still, particularly with Darren Peterson involved, that is still a good basketball team. I don't know if we can say that about Kansas State right now. But Kansas is still a good basketball team, playing at home against another really good team in Iowa State. That result wasn't a surprise. It turned into a blowout because Kansas played with a level of desperation that there was just no matching for Iowa State. At the end of the day, that game mattered more to Kansas. They had to have it more than Iowa State had to have it. This is a game that Kansas State has to have in a way that UCF does not. And that is not to suggest that UCF doesn't care if they win or lose, but you look at the big picture, UCF is 2-1 in the Big 12 right now. Trying to avoid, on the other side is Kansas State trying to avoid an 0-4 start. They have desperation and home court on their side. If they can't find a way to win, which has been my primary concern about this Kansas State team through the early portion of Big 12 play, that they don't seem to have that ability to find a way to make those winning plays and win those games. If they don't have it and they can't get to it tonight, then they just can't get to it. And this is going to already start to look like another lost season at Bramlage Coliseum. By the way, the other winless Big 12 teams, Baylor also started 0-3, but they did just pick up their first conference win of the season. I'm trying to remember who they beat last night. Looking it up real quick. It was Oklahoma State. They hammered Oklahoma State at Gallagher-Iba Arena. They scored 94 points. Oklahoma State, not good. Anyhow.
Do we know if K-State had their own players-only meeting?
Interesting question. Apparently that was critical for Kansas. The players got together and had a meeting.
I'm just saying, if that happened and Bill didn't even know, that's a true players-only meeting.
Yeah.
That's a leadership in the locker room. We need to figure this crap out because our coaches know that we can play better than this.
But this is my question for K-State. Who would call that meeting?
Haggerty?
At Kansas State. You would hope it would be him, right? Because he's the best player. And it's always easier when your best player is also your leader. When he's the guy has the ball in his hands the most, is also the guy who cares the most. So you'd hope it would be PJ Haggerty. But I have no idea. I have no idea who would stand at the front of the room and look his teammates in the eye and say, hey, man, we got to find a way tonight. We have to win. A loss is not acceptable. I don't know who that guy is on this Kansas State team. And that, last year, the guy who did that on last year's team was Coleman Hawkins, and that didn't matter much because they weren't good enough to overcome that. But Coleman Hawkins cared whether you won or lost. He just wasn't a superstar. PJ Haggerty is a superstar kind of player at his best. But is he the guy who's going to stand in front of the room and eyeball his teammates and say, yo, man, we can't be 0-4. We can't. It's not acceptable. We have to win tonight. I have no idea who that guy is for Kansas State. If they win tonight, I bet we find out. Because this is not a game that is a great matchup for them. They're going to struggle on the glass against a bigger team. UCF has been better at shooting the three than Kansas State has. So we're going to find out tonight, I think, if Kansas State wins. We're going to be able to see somebody or somebodies, and it's always better if it's more than one guy, really step forward and lead from the front tonight. Whether that's Haggerty, whether that's David Castillo off the bench, whether that's Kamari McGriff. I don't know. But it's got to be somebody. It's got to be somebody because this K-State team is dying for somebody to do that. And if they don't get that tonight, they will lose.
Yeah.
They will lose because I think UCF is better. But that doesn't mean it's not a winnable game for Kansas State because it is at home and they are the wounded animal. And typically in this league, that team, the team in Kansas State's shoes, finds a way to win. Does Kansas State have that in them? Because if they don't, that's not a fun answer. And the conversations the rest of the season aren't fun conversations about the present and the future, frankly, of K-State men's basketball. We're going to take one final break here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll have a little room to stretch our legs for the final word today. That's coming up to wrap up this edition of the show. Final word time on 580 Sports Talk. We got a little room for our final word today. Spencer Dupuis, what you got?
Hey, it was great last night to turn the TV on. I made a joke at the end of the show where Brendan and I were talking about.
Pizza's here.
I don't know why that.
What was that?
It's playing the ad for
Oh.
the end of the show.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where this thing went. Whatever. And we were talking about what was going to lead into college basketball last night. Well, it was the golf.
Yeah, the TGL. How did my beloved Jupiter Lynx do?
They lost.
Oh,
I turned on on ESPN at 8:00 though, expecting to see Allen Fieldhouse from the outside, the full open.
Mm-hmm.
No, they just kept going. Apparently, there was this big technical difficulty from Allen Fieldhouse on ESPN. So for at least the first half, there was only the up high camera angle, which to me is like takes me back to broadcasting in my last job where we just had one camera during basketball and it just moved back and forth like this. I was like, this is how I'm used to watching basketball. Very interesting to see ESPN go through technical difficulties like that, knowing we all go through technical difficulties, even the worldwide leader.
Yeah. It's I remember one time happening across a New York Yankees radio broadcast where they were having to call the games on their cell phones because they had an issue with the ISDN line at Yankee Stadium. And I thought, I've done that before. I've done high school girls softball on a cell phone held to my ear in the middle of a park because I could not get my equipment connected properly. We've all been there. And technology even betrays those of us at the highest levels of this profession. Final word for me today. I'm going to go back to that KU win as well because I have seen impressive home performances from KU in recent years, followed by duds. Notably, followed by duds at Kansas State. Like the best home wins of the season for KU the last 2 years were immediately the next game, followed by losses at Bramlage Coliseum. Thankfully, that's not where the next game is for Kansas. So maybe that means that their win last night over Iowa State is the start of something big for them and a big surge ahead in the Big 12 standings. But if that's going to be the case, Kansas can't lean on last night's 3-point shooting having been the reason that they won the game. They've got to understand that they won the game because everybody played well, because everybody played hard, because everybody committed to a team concept, because they shared the basketball, because they didn't care who made the play. They genuinely went all out to go and make the play that needed to be made. And they succeeded with Darren Peterson, not because of him or not in spite of his absence. They succeeded with Darren Peterson. And that might be the biggest thing that helps Kansas as they move forward, looking ahead to Friday night when Baylor comes to Allen Fieldhouse. That'll do it for us today. K-State basketball is next. We'll be back tomorrow to recap that game and talk about the rest of what's happening in the wide world of sports. For Spencer Dupuis, I'm Dan Lucero. This was 580 Sports Talk. Good night.